Abduction, solving mysteries in the night. Chasing shadows, finding answers, shining bright light. No one's left behind in the darkness, all alone. With a heart like a siren, she brings the lost ones home. Silent cries in the dark no longer have to be. For justice, wheels keep turning, granny on the beat. Broken voices find their power, call out hope again. When these crime busters run, no victims left in pain. Bravery in her veins, truth she won't disguise. With a fire in her eyes, she's got nothing to deny. Granny fights for justice, never backs down from the call. For the voiceless and the missing, she'll stand tall.
Hello, everybody. Everybody's doing good tonight. I'm not 100% myself, but I'm getting there. Hello, Sam, Ginger. Yeah, today I can hold my head up. And I've been able to keep some soup down. So, yeah, it's going in the right direction. All right. So, we'll start off with a spotlight on the missing. And the first one is Sky. Some of these names are tough. Wagonecht, I think. Missing since October 11th, 2024, Knoxville, Tennessee. 17-year-old female, 5 feet 6 inches tall, 135 pounds, blonde hair, and blue eyes. Let's see. Nothing extra about her, not what she was wearing. The only thing that she's believed to be in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. But I mean, I don't know, October, been a few months, so I'm not sure. And no other real information given to tell us anything about her, which is sad. Where are the parents in these circumstances, guys? I don't understand. The next one is Demetrius Rudd, also missing since October 11th from Knoxville. Kind of weird. 17 years old, 5 feet 11, 125 pounds. That seems like he'd be very skinny, wouldn't it? Black hair and brown eyes. And he is believed to be in the Knoxville, Tennessee area as well. So I don't know if these two kids left together or what's going on. But there you have it. 2 children missing on the same day from the same city. Kind of strange, and the same age. So could they be connected? It's possible. If you know anything, call TBI or the Knoxville Police Department, or even call 911. All right. Brenda, hello. Thank you, K9. Hello. I appreciate you. Yeah, exactly. Where's the media and the parents in these? That's what breaks my heart about these. Nothing. Don't you think it's odd that both those kids that I just mentioned today, Sky and what was the other kid's name? Demetrius. Sky and Demetrius both left the same day from the same city. They're both 17. I mean, to me, there's a story there, right? I don't know. Just really sad. Really sad. But it is what it is, I guess. Just hope that if they are still in the Knoxville area, that, I don't know, they get comfortable and get seen, right? They belong home. they belong home with their parents. I don't know. Even if my kid was 30, if she went missing, right? I'd have a problem with that. I'd I'd be knocking down the police doors, knocking on media doors trying to find answers. You would see my name when you Googled it because I'd be, or her, or yeah, you would see me when you Googled her because, right? I mean, I'd be all over the place searching for her. I just don't get it. I had seen, let me see if I can find it on my page. Yeah, I'm going to share it. So today, I don't know, a post just on X just kind of made me angry. And I did respond to it. Some have said that this is the face of evil. This is the father of missing son who only wants his son back. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, sweetheart, your dad is not giving up. Please share this heartbreaking image so many are calling evil. Evil is those who only love money. And I put, Seth is not evil. He's a broken man who just wants his son back. And I've been getting some, well, probably more than some good answers back to that. Yeah, Robin, exactly like you. I'd be exactly like you. But I've had a few that I have blocked because one actually said, oh, he's got evil, dark eyes. And if you've ever seen evil, well, excuse me, I have seen evil. I have faced it with my husband and his hands around my neck. So nobody could ever tell me that I have never seen evil. This man right here, those eyes, they are not evil. Those are the eyes of a broken man. So, forgive my rant. I'm just a little bit, I don't feel well. But it just irritated me when I saw that. And I know that person probably was from a hate channel. I don't know. I don't care. It just got to me today. And I was angry. It wasn't the only one, but that was the worst one that I got underneath that post. And yeah, I blocked them. Blocked a couple of them. I don't want them anywhere near me. I don't need that kind of attention. If celebrities can even say that, man, it gets to you, the pain, right? How can others not see that? How can others not see him crying and know that this is a man who's heartbroken that his son is gone? I don't get it. Do they really think he's that good of an actor? Really? I agree, K9. Seth is so far from evil. These people aren't worth the time of day. They just aren't. Hello, Chemistry Queen. Seth is dying inside. Yeah. A broken father without loving son. Exactly. So, yeah. It just and guys, I don't normally respond or say anything to these kind of things because for that reason. Because it just draws the haters in. And it did, and I know better, but I couldn't help it. People saying evil things, and the girl that I from a poster, she wasn't saying that he was evil by any means, right? But she was speaking out too because she didn't like anybody saying that Seth is evil. right? So I shared it and put my post with it because more people need to stand up for Seth, right? And yeah, it didn't matter. Yes. Hello, Maui son. Praying and believing God will bring forth the truth, justice for Sebastian. Yeah. Yeah, his dark circles under his eyes, and that AMW video, it was really pronounced. And I will say, he looked angry when he was talking at the camera and saying, "If you have my son, give him back. He's my son." Of course, he looked angry because I think he knows who did it, just like the rest of us, right? Of course, he was angry, but that doesn't mean he's evil. You can be angry and not be evil. Yeah. You can see how broken he really is. The other two smiling it up and spilling lies. Exactly. I have seen the eyes of evil as well. Seth does not have those eyes. Even when he was telling Mr. Chris where to go, his eyes were not evil. Exactly. And that's what ticked me off about that post so much was if you have seen evil, you know what it's like. Oh, don't even go there, woman. Don't even. I've probably seen more evil than she has seen in her lifetime. So yeah, you know, Ginger, I'm sure you feel the same way. Yes, we're angry for him. Exactly. Exactly. And yes, Robin, poor Sebastian, because what happens in these cases, right? I really feel like all the garbage that's going on out there, and I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna go into any of it, any stories, anything that I've heard. Um, thank you, Pam. I appreciate that. Um, but it's garbage, and it depletes time away from finding Sebastian, right? It's all garbage, and I don't understand it for the life of me. It if I didn't care about Sebastian so much, I would say to heck with this case and move on. I would. I realized I wouldn't get as many views because people care about Sebastian too. But doggone it, I do care about Sebastian. I do care about this case. I care that Seth is out there hurting and those other two are out there living their best lives. That's so irritating to me on so many levels. And I can't give it up. I can't. Does it mean I'm going to talk about it every day? Not always, because there isn't a whole lot to talk about. But speaking of that, um, yeah, that's their mission, diverting attention. Absolutely, K9. Um, I went back today and I was looking at um, something that the Lore Lodge put together. He kind of incorporated all his videos into one. Um, and it'll take us a couple of days to get through. But I thought we could go through it slowly, discuss it, and even keeping in mind that in the beginning, he maybe didn't have all his information, right? And even in the beginning, we didn't either. And even in the beginning, he was keeping his mind and his options open about who was responsible for Sebastian's disappearance, just like we all did in the beginning, right? So I thought we'd look at that. Um, I really like the Lore Lodge. I like Aiden. He is very good at doing his research. He takes his time. He does it really, really well. And so there was a couple of things as I started watching it, and I thought, I never thought about that. You know, or, oh, I never knew that was out there. There's just a couple of different things that he had and he had researched that I didn't know about. And I thought, wow, so maybe we can glean. I don't like going back, but the way that he's telling this and the way that he is explaining some things, I didn't know some of this. So I hope you guys realize and find that out too as we're going through it. Let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen with you. Everybody see it okay? All right.
If I had a nickel for every case we covered this year in which law enforcement somehow completely failed to look into the family to a proper degree, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but the compilation of nickels across these cold opens has actually grown quite substantial. So I'm Aiden Mattis, and welcome back to the War. It never was. If we look at the basics, forensic analysis of the scene showed no sign of Sebastian having left the house on foot. He hated being barefoot, and yet all of his shoes were left behind. And even if he had left the house without shoes, it was cold, and he hated being cold. Now, if you're not familiar with autism, and particularly autism in children, that might not seem like a very big detail. But if you are, and I have a little brother on the spectrum, kids on the spectrum will often be very rigid about certain things, certain food types, textures, and texture and temperature are definitely 2 of the big ones. In this situation, we know that Sebastian didn't like the texture of being barefoot, and he didn't like the temperature of being cold. Doesn't seem very likely that he'd just walk out into it. But even if he had left the house barefoot in the cold, scent dogs found no trace of his steps anywhere on the dew-laden grass, which should have been thick with it. And even if he had left his house barefoot in the cold and somehow not left a scent trail for the dogs arriving just hours after he would have run off, not a single camera in the neighborhood, of which there were many, caught a glimpse of him. And that wasn't all. As it turns out, Chris Proudfoot, Sebastian's stepfather, has a history of familial issues. While the allegations made by Nina Gomez, his 4th ex-wife, are of course a little suspect due to the nature of their relationship, the court records aren't. And Nina accused Chris of attempting to kidnap their daughter Faith by seeking a restraining order against her through the Tennessee court system. When Chris then lost that case due to a complete lack of evidence that Nina was in any way a danger to him or their daughter, she left the state and fled to her parents' home in New Mexico, where she filed her own restraining order. A bitter divorce proceeding then followed, in which Chris repeatedly sought to obtain primary custody throughout this court battle and then even afterwards. This too backfired, as Chris was ordered to take 12 hours of high conflict behavior skill training and 24 hours of parenting skills courses. And then once again, he fought the court's decision and lost. When we put out the final portion of our series, the most recent entry into that record was a notice of a hearing set for September 18th, 2024, requested by Chris. And just reading the court records, it's hard to say exactly what's happened since, but a bench trial was held on that date and a domestic relations hearing report was filed on the 10th of October. The last update in the record as of December 26, 2024, the day on which this script was written, simply reads CLS Order Approving Hearing Officer Report. The most relevant detail from those records, however, is the timing of Chris's renewed assault on Nina's parental rights. In September of 2023, Chris motioned to relocate Faith Gomez from New Mexico to Tennessee. And around the same time, he began laying the groundwork to have Sebastian move in with his biological father, Seth, at the end of the 2023 to 2024 school year. And all of this was in line with comments Chris would later make, which suggested he didn't want Sebastian around his daughter. And at one point, he allegedly told Seth that this was in fact the case. Speaking to Pascal from The Pascal Show on April 5th, 2024, Sebastian's dad told the host that people were asking why Chris didn't want Sebastian around his daughter. According to Seth, Chris said that if he tells them, people will stop looking for Sebastian. Now, this fully conflicts with the multiple times that Chris told various interviewers that Sebastian going to live with his dad had nothing to do with Faith. And those interviews, in my opinion, are the nail in the coffin. You see, over the months following Sebastian's disappearance, Chris and Katie Proudfoot appeared on numerous TV programs and YouTube channels. From interview to interview, their story changed repeatedly. And that part is what we gave the most attention to, and in my opinion, it's very clear that Chris Proudfoot wasn't just remembering things a bit differently each time. He was just lying, and about a number of things that, were he innocent, there would be no point in lying about, in my opinion, allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, taken together with the lack of any evidence that Sebastian had actually run away, and Chris's adjudicated history of parental issues, it's hard to understand why this wasn't being looked at the same way that everyone looks at the JonBenet Ramsey case. To me, only one answer seemed plausible. Chris Proudfoot had friends in the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. So, during my research, I called the office to ask some questions, one of which was, does Chris Proudfoot have any friends in the Sheriff's Department? And the answer I was given via email was that he wasn't friends with the sheriff. That is not what I asked. Followed up that email with another question, asking if the department had, as Chris claimed, told them that he was cleared, and there was no response. So, out of an abundance of caution, I refrained from sharing my documents with them, instead sending them along to the TBI and the FBI. And I wrote to both, informing them of my findings and providing all of the materials I'd compiled in the course of my research. We published part 3 on August 2nd, 2024, and hoped that the added attention, the structured hypothesis within the episode, and this dossier sent to the authorities would lead to something. Now, I can't say for certain that it had anything to do with our work, but on the 26th of August, something did finally happen. The FBI put out a $50,000 reward for information leading to the location and return of Sebastian Rogers, or to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for his disappearance. What the Sumner County Sheriff's Department had inexplicably insisted was nothing but a missing persons case was finally recategorized as what it should have been all along, a kidnapping. Now, when I had reached out to the FBI and TBI at the end of July, I'd suggested that they obtain search warrants for the homes of Christopher's family, especially those involved in his attempted legal abduction of Faith several years earlier. So if that step has not yet been taken, I do think that it should be, as if Sebastian remains alive, it is my opinion that he is most likely in their care. But that
Isn't that interesting, guys? I was not aware that Aiden sent information to TBI and the FBI. And then after he did that, the FBI put out a reward. See, he does his research, guys. He does due diligence, right? I know K9, right? Yeah. It's really scary. But I don't think he wanted Faith. I think his mother did. Yep, me too. This is one of the first things that I saw, and I was like, oh. So he didn't even, because he didn't get the answer that he asked. He just went over their head to TBI and to the FBI. Thank you, Pam. I appreciate you saying that. So, yeah, this was news to me. Did any of the rest of you realize that he had done that? You know, like you said, he doesn't know if what he sent them had anything to do with it, but it was after, and, you know, great. And he is hoping. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I know he's got a huge following. I wish that I had the detail head that he has of just getting in there and knuckling down to try to find that truth. The research that he does, he is so good at that. So good at that. The other thing that he feels that if search warrants weren't done on Chris's parents' family, that they should be done. You know, I'm amazed that he hasn't gotten any threats. I mean, think about it, guys. You know, he something else.
That said, new information appeared shortly before the time of this video's writing. I first saw it through the Court TV YouTube channel, in which host Julie Grant presented CCTV footage from the Texas Roadhouse where Sebastian was last seen by anyone outside of his immediate family. And that was on Sunday, February 25th, 2024. Appearing as a guest was former FBI Jennifer Coffindaffer, who was there to give some of her opinions on the video. The video displays Katie taking pictures of Sebastian as he eats and then sending them to someone. It's not clear who, and it seems that these pictures were never handed over to the police. Then, in another segment of the footage, shown in a different video but from the same source, Katie can be seen looking around the room as if searching for somebody. Could be looking for the waiter, but she spends a full 15 seconds kind of slowly scanning each corner of the room. Trying to analyze that probably wouldn't be scientific, but if you look at it, it's odd. And Coffindaffer's assessment focused on that behavior, as well as unreleased footage in her possession, which might give some credence to someone else watching him. Basically, she found the whole thing a bit peculiar. Now, the implication here, if we are saying it's weird the way Katie's looking around the room, would be that she is expecting to see someone, and that someone could be involved in the disappearance. And if that's the case, it screams human trafficking, which is a surefire way to make sure nobody ever finds out how abusive Chris truly, allegedly, was. Now, just to be clear, I am not making any sort of accusation here. I don't think there is sufficient evidence to say that Chris and Katie Proudfoot trafficked Sebastian. I don't want to put that out there. That is not my argument. But given Seth's claims that Chris and Katie allowed Sebastian to be abused by an older boy at least once without pressing any charges, you do have to wonder. Once again, not making any claims, not making any allegations. This is all opinion based off of the information that I have found. And from what I found, according to Seth, the Proudfoots claimed that the boy who did it was 13 and therefore too young to be prosecuted. The only problem with this is that there is no such law in California where the offense took place. In fact, not only was there no such law at the time that this occurred, but a 2018 law actually specifies that this is one of the few crimes for which even children under the age of 12 can be prosecuted. In any case, the Sumner County Sheriff's Office has since released a statement regarding one specific rumor about the aforementioned CCTV footage, in which they said that an individual in a green hoodie captured on the outdoor cameras has been interviewed and that there is no evidence linking them to Sebastian's disappearance. If it's the person I think it is, he or she seems to have had some sort of verbal interaction with Katie as the two squeeze past each other in the parking lot, and as soon as this person passes Katie, they throw their hands up in kind of like a
Couldn't stop. He goes so fast into other things that it's like I keep thinking, oh, I can't stop it. What else was he going to say? And then he goes into something else, and it's so quick that, yeah. Anyway, when he was talking about the trafficking, he said, I'm not making any allegations, right? Allegedly, this is, thing to think about. Oh, he has gotten threats. Good for him. Good for him. But here's the thing. I mean, we have all discussed trafficking, allegedly. We don't know what happened. Does it make sense? Yes. But we don't know exactly what happened, right? But it's something that's out there, something that's in the forefront, right? But I think it's a familial thing. I don't think that Sebastian was taken by strangers because guys, we all know how protective Chris is over his things, right? His house. Nobody's going to come into his house. So I am sure that all the windows and the doors were all locked up because of the way he is. I'd bet the farm on that, right? I mean, the way that he is, I'm sure they all were locked up. So I really think that Sebastian was carried from the home, just like we thought. the lifestyle of a couple of people is questionable. I agree. Allegedly, you know. And yeah, K9, I know you've had this feeling for a long time. You don't think he was trafficked. You think what happened was far worse, and it's your opinion. And you have every right to your opinion, hon. Every right to it. I don't believe it because no blood was found. And but I will say this, something happened in that house for her not to want to stay there. I mean, think about it, guys. She doesn't want to stay there. I saw another post. I don't know if Elizabeth Smart had said something after the fact, but there was a post on X that said, ask Elizabeth Smart if her parents up and moved 3.5 hours away a week after she went missing. And I thought, oh, good point. So let's not bring up other creators, though, okay? But hello, Nanny Bate. Good to see you. I don't think anything bad happened until he was out of the house and taken somewhere else. Could be, There's also the allegation of drugging, right? That he was drugged. So, I mean, there's different things that are out there, and we have to look at everything, right? Kind of try with an open mind of, what happened, right? Hello, what happened? Because we don't know. All we really have is the flashlight video in the 3 a.m. car, right? We don't know. I do believe that that's the way he was taken out. That's my opinion. Not everybody agrees with that. Let's continue on.
Leave me alone gesture. The thing is, while a lot of the attention on the internet, the rumors, all of that was focused on this individual in the green hoodie, and could this person have anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance? What I saw looking at that video was that this person was standing by their car when Katie walked up, and then Katie appeared. From what I can see in the video, it looks like she just starts berating this individual about standing there, which to me is the interesting part. There is Katie's behavior, the way that she interacts with this stranger, especially after you watch this video where she doesn't really look like she's interacting with Sebastian over dinner, except for a few moments where she scolds him a little bit. But then again, the problem here is that this is a 40-minute dinner they had, and only about 4 minutes have been released of this footage. So it would behoove those in possession of the full tape of their time at the restaurant to provide it to the public so that more people can analyze the entire thing rather than just what one investigator finds to be relevant. Now, one last thing that I came across was actually from May, buried deep inside of an interview with a channel called Cluminati, about whom I have absolutely nothing nice to say. I haven't had the chance to listen through the entire 7.5 hours of the live stream, though I have already come across a few points where Chris reiterates lies covered in our I cannot speak today. Chris just lies, and they're the same lies that we've told in our other previous videos, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, thankfully, a channel called Shay's Safe Space did...
Chris just lies. I like that. And guys, normally I would skip over this stuff because there's some creators I just want to stay away from. But he's making a really good point here. So I decided to just leave it in. So K9, you believe that he was drugged and he was carried to the car at 3 a.m. and taken away. Yeah. I don't, I, the only thing so tired of the BS clowning around. Someone needs to be locked up. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, it's never in our time, right? It's never, ever in our time. And, we all, when an arrest is made, we want it to stick, right? There is a few things, though, that are a hindrance. And in my opinion, and allegedly, the DA of Sumner County is not helping anything. I really think that that's the big driving force as to why arrests are not being made. I could be totally wrong. That's why I'm saying it's alleged, but that's my opinion. We almost had a new DA in Sebastian's case. Share, Ginger. Was there a election and some person lost or something? That wouldn't surprise me. All right, let's continue.
Watched the entire stream, and she caught something big. At one point during the interview, Chris tells the panel, "We have a 15-year-old autistic child that is missing, and unfortunately, the best part about it is he has managed to do this without any evidence left behind whatsoever. That is the most unique thing about this case." If you want to catch it for yourself, it's around 4 hours and 10 minutes into the Illuminati live stream from May 18th, 2024. And I would recommend doing so, or at least watching the video on Shay's Safe Space, because she's just a better person than Illuminati is. But anyway, the reason I would suggest you do that is because the way he says these words, the way he expresses this thought, it's as if he's bragging, as if he's gotten away with something. And it compounds when you look at what he said to Smiley Stories World on March 20th of this year. Again, describing the situation as unique, Chris told the host that this is a case that literally has all of these agencies stumped, followed by, playing devil's advocate, let's say one of us was suspected of foul play. There's no way we would outdo all these agencies. And yet, this 15-year-old boy, he says, has managed to outdo everybody. Call him Houdini. And as Chris said that last part, he sounded almost gleeful. It doesn't sound like a man whose stepson has been missing for, at that point, less than a month. And he wraps the whole thing up with a bow by saying that this is a case that will go down as a research study case where they're asking the questions and looking for answers and literally nothing. Everything they try to come up with, blank. Now, I think Chris is actually right about that part. I just don't think he realizes that he's nowhere near as smart as John Ramsey, nor does he have the money to pull this off for 3 decades. The fact of the matter is, to me, the evidence suggests that someone knows what happened to that child, and in my opinion, that someone is Christopher Proudfoot. It's up to law enforcement to do the hard work now, and with the FBI involved, there is at least some hope that one day the people responsible for Sebastian's fate will be brought to justice. I will say that when we first did our series on this, I was of the opinion that Sebastian is probably still alive. At this point, it's been almost a year. Nobody has seen him. This is a kid with severe medical problems. I hope that he is eventually recovered and placed with a parent who actually loves him. But I also think that the circumstances are not in his favor. And for now, that's unfortunately all I really have to present regarding the developments since our series reached its conclusion. I do apologize that this video is so little new content, this update at the beginning. And I do promise that if it were not a holiday week, I would be giving you a full-length episode full of original content just like usual. But this season is just brutal for us. So what we decided to do was compile that 3 episodes into this one, give the update at the beginning, give the summary at the beginning. And if you're interested in watching the entire thing, you can go do it right here. And if you're not, if you've seen the full series and don't feel like watching it again, we completely understand. We would simply humbly request that you give us a like or leave this episode running in order to make sure the algorithm doesn't think you all jumped off at one specific point and derank the video to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. For those of you just seeing this for the first time, welcome, and please don't begrudge us the brief sponsored segment that's about to play. I promise the
There is more, guys. I just skipped over his thing. All right. Let's see what I missed here. Yeah, her statement, it was the last time she spoke to Sebastian, her latest interview. When was the last time she saw him? Right. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what Ginger's talking about, excuse me, guys. We found out today that, and I talked about Angie Solomon being put under arrest for allegedly hiring a hitman to red rum her husband, Aaron Solomon. Well, we found out that there were 2 more people that she was asking this guy to take care of as well. And the 2 people were not mentioned, but it seemed as though they had they were, how did they word that? People in high places, right? That kind of thing. So right away we went to the DA and the governor because that's who she complained about. They have told so many different stories. Anybody that takes up for them is out of their minds. I know. And I think that the biggest thing is that they have I think they're being paid, because what person in their right mind wouldn't question why somebody's story keeps changing? I mean, even as recent as the AMW video, Katie's story changed again. It was now 11 o'clock when she fell asleep, not midnight. So the story changed once again. I mean, it doesn't stay the same. And it's because it's hard to tell a lie and retell it and retell and retell and retell it. Just can't, right? Yeah. Duper's Delight from CP. Yep. Oh, darn spell check, Nanny. K9. His series is the only one I watch multiple times. I'm getting more and more out of it, just watching it again. When was this video of Aiden's? He just put it all together like 3 months ago. He put all of them together. So, so it's a mixture of several, I think he said 3 different videos that he did on Sebastian's case, but he just put them all together. And he put this together then 3 months ago. But some of the actual material was obviously, later than 3 months ago. Yeah, I love to hear him talk too. The only thing that it's very difficult to follow him. watching like this and then trying to speak about things because you think he's going to say something more about that same subject. So you don't want to click pause, but then he goes into something else. But he's good at what he does. He just goes boom, boom, boom. I mean, he doesn't have to think. He just goes, right? That's a real talent. It really is. Yes. Yep. And we call Dee Dee Mr. Yummy. And we watch Mr. Yummy a lot. All right.
Early in the morning of Monday, February 26, 2024, police in Hendersonville, Tennessee, a small city just northeast of Nashville, received a call about a missing child. That boy was, and as far as anyone is aware, still is Sebastian Rogers, who lived in the Stafford Court neighborhood with his parents, Katie and Christopher Proudfoot, and he lived about half a mile west of Beach High School, where he appears to have been either a freshman or sophomore. Katie is his biological mother, and Christopher is his stepfather. But that morning, rather than driving her son to school, Katie Proudfoot was calling the police and then driving around the area in her baby blue Infiniti SUV looking for Sebastian. And when police arrived on scene, they were met with a somewhat difficult set of circumstances. Nobody knew precisely when Sebastian had left the home, nor if he'd done so of his own volition or at the urging of somebody else. All they had to go on is that he was last known to have been in the home before midnight. And that, in and of itself, is not a particularly specific hint. In addition to that, he'd left his phone in the kitchen, his shoes were still by the front door, and there was no indication as to what direction he'd left in. That meant this was going to be an uphill battle to find him, but with no reason yet to suspect foul play, police were hopeful that he would not have strayed far from the home and...
Yeah. So, no shoes, no coat, no phone. Didn't even take the money from his Legos ATM. See, I think that Sebastian was smart enough if he was going to run away, which we know there's no evidence of, right? But I think if he was going to run away, he would have taken all those things, plus probably his Switch. It's my opinion. He sure is yummy. Hello, show poodles. Good to see you. So yeah, there was a few things there. I mean, although I will say this, he didn't have a coat on when he went to TRH. He was in a t-shirt. His mother had a hoodie on. Just saying, right? Mom had a hoodie. Yeah. No information on direction of travel. That's because I think we do have information of direction of travel. I mean, he traveled from the back door of his house, being carried to the car, on Stafford Court to the common area, and then that car backed up onto Kellen and left. Now, we don't know which way it went, but police might know that. I mean, I don't know.
would be found somewhere within the general area. And at first, it seemed like that might be the case. While there were no footprints to follow, a police dog named Max led its handler east from the Proudfoot's neighborhood and into the construction site between Stafford Court and Beach High School. At first, it was only a scent trail, but then, as they progressed further into the construction site, the officer handling Max started to see footprints. The canine unit then followed these footprints further into the construction site and right up to the edge of a retaining pond. And then Max went into the pond.
Max led me straight to the retaining pond. Over behind Willow Boulevard, he dove right into the water.
But wherever the boy could have gone from there, It's hard to say. The police communications don't record any other further footprints. Or at least I should say the police communications I was able to get my hands on, which came from the YouTube channel Missing in Plain Sight. I don't know particularly where they got them, but it was the most complete version of the audio that I was able to find during this week's research. I'm going to be trying to see if I can find a more...
Just kind of interesting because I never heard of this channel that he's talking about, but it was said later that there was a scent, but it wasn't specifically Sebastian's scent. So I don't believe that Sebastian would have jumped into that pond because even Chris and Katie said it. He doesn't like to be dirty. You saw that pond. It was muddy. It's not going to go in there. He liked pools, which makes sense because he can see everything in a pool. You can see everything. You know, you can see a leaf if it's floating in a pool, right? In that mud of the retention pond, you're not going to see anything. That's the last place Sebastian would go, in my opinion. See if I've missed anything here. Oh, welcome, show poodles. We're happy to have you. Very, very happy to have you. Let me see what I've got here.
Granny's got a plan with a twist and a flair. Crime solving secrets in a rocking chair. A family bound tight with capes and a clue. Now you're one of us, we believe in you. Welcome to the team, the squad, the crew. Chasing down chaos like we always do. Grab a magnifying glass, put your game face on. With Granny's Crime Busters, the thrill's never gone.
Welcome, welcome. We're happy to have you. I have concerns about the backyard neighbors' involvement. Yeah, I do too. Again, you know, everything we say on here is alleged. You know, we're just throwing things out there, right? We're trying to figure out what happened to Sebastian because he's why we're here, right? It's about him. What happened to him? All right, let's continue on.
More complete version from the cops in this upcoming week. In any case, after checking the retaining pond, the construction crews that worked at the site were beginning to arrive on scene. So the police told them, hey, keep your eyes out. There's a missing boy in the area. Check the spots you're working. And if you see anything, let us know. Also, just in case I wasn't clear enough, everything that I'm talking about right now comes from that police radio communications. And all of that came from, again, Missing in Plain Sight's videos that have the audio in them. And it's that audio, those communications, that told me that for the next several hours, police checked every tip they could. Anything that came in, they were willing to give it a look. And this meant checking everything from downtown Hendersonville all the way out towards Gallatin, 12 miles to the east. But no matter where they checked, no matter how many tips came in, nothing turned out to be Sebastian Rogers. And then one of the police officers operating a drone spotted something. Drone operator said, hi guys, the construction zone, there's another pond. There's somebody standing in the woods. It looks like a person. It is a person, we know, but there's another pond. He's standing back there by himself, past the construction zone in the same area back there. Then another officer says, next to the north of us. The drone operator then says, yeah, the north end of it, yeah. Where they're working on the machinery at, go straight back. There's another pond back there, but there's a person in the woods by that pond, past the house on the other side of the tree line. Another officer responds and says, going back toward beach or going the back side? And drone operator says, yeah, on the back side, and he's not moving. He's just standing there by himself in the woods. With this being reported, several officers utilizing ATVs to travel and then the drone for coordination made their way back toward this pond, towards this man that's standing stock still. They got within 25 feet, and then within 15, and then they recognized precisely what it is they were looking at.
It's a mannequin. Sorry, guys. Look just like a person from the air.
And unfortunately,
Isn't that crazy, guys? I always have to wonder who put that mannequin there. It's kind of timely. That's what makes me wonder, was Chris that smart? I don't know. Traffickers? Maybe. All alleged. Remember, guys. Three children in Utah missing for 2 years were recently found returned to mom. Father was hiding with them. With help from the FLDS church. Wow. See, and this kind of thing would not surprise me, although we know where the three parents are. So it isn't parents that are hiding him, right? However, I mean, we've seen movies about this, right? The Underground, where they take and they hide mothers with their children, fathers with their children because of abuse, things like that. And it usually is through a church organization, guys. I'm just saying. I still have hope for Sebastian as well. I don't let myself go there, and I don't let our chat go there because of Seth. Seth still has hope that his son is alive. And he said something once that made sense to me. If people think he's gone, then they're not going to look for him. Then he's not going to be at the forefront of their minds when they're out and about. They're not going to be thinking, well, Sebastian's out here somewhere. I'll just keep my eyes open. He could be out here. Never know where he is, right? No. If they think he's gone, they're not going to be looking for him. And I feel the same way. And so, and one of the things that opened my eyes to that was, it turned out to be, I guess, not him, but somebody was watching a video. And it was about a tornado that went through this town, and a reporter was doing, an on-site interview, and a child looking like Sebastian walked past the camera. And this child was walking on his tiptoes just like Sebastian does. I mean, I really wondered if it was him. We all did, right? And I thought about that, and I thought, even in things like that, Sebastian could be seen, So we never know. We need to keep our eyes open at all times. We could be watching a news channel about something, and he could be there in the crowd, right? We don't know. That whole thing was weird as heck. Yeah. Tennessee has really changed a lot. It used to be my favorite place to go. I've changed my mind since Sebastian's disappearance. It breaks my heart for all the missing. I agree with you, Nanny. I lived in Tennessee for 3 years, and I came back to Wisconsin when my mom got very ill from lung cancer. And so, but I've often thought, I'd love to go back because I love the, well, first of all, Nashville's fireworks display and their whole party that they throw the whole day before. It's incredible. Like nothing you ever experience, honestly. And there's always just so much to do. There's lots of golfing and everything else. I mean, just even taking a drive in the rolling hills was beautiful enough for me. But I got to tell you, because of Sebastian's place and because of the corruption that I've seen there, I agree with you. I would never go back, ever. No, nope, couldn't get me to live there anymore. I think true crime channels should have caution when covering missing children. We need to keep people searching for the living if law enforcement has no evidence of foul play. Yeah, I agree. I agree. We have to be very careful of that. And because what is said, like look at AMW. What did they say? They said that they feel that he is right close to home. First of all, I disagree with that. I don't think he's close to home. My opinion, allegedly. I believe he was taken somewhere. Secondly, they put out, that's like a subliminal message to everybody else in the United States that don't look for him because he's close to home. That's my opinion. It really has new light on Tennessee, and not in a good way, you know. And it, you know what? Probably not a bad thing, K9. It's probably time that, I mean, that all this came out. All you have to do is look at the Solomon case and this case, and you see corruption everywhere. And I'm not a person that normally will see that, you know, or take it to heart in such a way that I have in this case. Honestly, you know, we know that there's corruption, we know that there's conspiracy out there, but with what I have seen in this area in Tennessee, it blows my mind. It really does. It blows my mind. All right, let's keep going.
That is just kind of how the rest of that day went. While the officers should absolutely be commended for the attention they paid to this case, for the efforts they made during that initial search process, ultimately, their efforts turned up nothing. They checked every house, explored every unlocked crawl space, and reviewed the security footage from every home that would give it to them. But there was no sign of Sebastian. And I can only imagine how frustrating it must have been during this initial search phase for the officers going to all of these different homes that had cameras and just finding nothing on them. Some of the time it was like 139 Willow Bend, where you had cameras looking right back out at that retaining pond that Max led his handler to, but those guys wouldn't answer the door. And then you had houses like 1015 Kellen Lane, one road over from Stafford Court, where people had Ring cameras that just didn't pick anything up. And when people did answer the door, some said that they had seen Sebastian in the past, but they hadn't seen him that morning. One neighbor was able to tell police that he had once found Sebastian hiding under his son's car, which added check under cars to the police search criteria, but nothing much other than that. Meanwhile, other
So I've heard that once or twice that a neighbor had said they found Sebastian under their car. I have trouble believing that. Do you guys believe that? Because we know he doesn't like to be dirty. Do you really think Sebastian would crawl under somebody's car? Hello, Kay. Good to see you. I know someone in LE and they say there's more corruption in law enforcement than politics. I think they go hand in hand. Hello, Sammy. It's just hard to let it go. It just seems like we need to care because the family he was mainly around didn't seem to. Yeah, I agree. Same here, Granny, but this has taken a whole new level to file sickening monsters. It sure has. I agree. Because their reserve police officer in the backyard of Sebastian's house didn't turn in his stuff. Nope. Yeah, see, I don't think Sebastian would go under anybody's cars either. Oh, he later came out and said it wasn't him, it was someone else. Good. Yeah, because this is the thing that irritates me. It was put out there by Chris and Katie, of all people, allegedly, that Sebastian was autistic. And everybody goes to the worst version of autism, and we have talked about it here in our chat, and we have said that it seems as though Sebastian suffered more from not only ADHD, which he'd been diagnosed early on, but CPTSD. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And those things are very similar to autism. And it takes a qualified person to be able to tell the difference between the two. There's so much corruptness in this area. And I honestly think we know for a fact that Chris and Katie wanted Sebastian put into a home. I think they needed this autistic diagnosis for that reason. I really do. And I think that, if there are officials, law officials, there are DAs that will take money under the table, a doctor will too, guys. So I have a grandson with high functioning. He unfortunately is a runner. He just turned 7. Oh, I'm sorry, Nanny. See, that's the thing, though. They have said that if a child hasn't eloped before the age of 12, it's highly unlikely that he will do so after that. It's very rare. Not that it can't happen, but it's very rare. These are things I've found out. I knew nothing about autism before I started this case. And, you learn very quickly, because I am not one that wants to put out misinformation. That's not something I like to do. There's also AUDHD, combination of autism and AD. Yeah. I remember the Cash for Kids scandal. See, and that's what I'm thinking. Guys, it doesn't matter. I don't think that Katie and Chris had that much money, honestly. I mean, I know he was a higher paid, but Canine or Ginger, do you remember how much I said that their monthly mortgage was? It was outrageous. Yeah. Number 4 and highest number of missing children per capita. Yep. We did a study on it, and one of our people broke down the numbers, and with Tennessee only being 2% of the population of the United States, 25% of missing children come from Tennessee. 4,000, you think? Yeah. So yeah, like they're okay. Both of you said 4,000 something. I think it was 4,600, if I'm not mistaken. So their monthly mortgage is over $4,000, guys. That's a lot of money to spend on a mortgage, right? I mean, that's 3 times more than I make, so. Well, Katie did work at Brinks, and there was some, I don't know if it came from Nina, I think it came from Nina in the beginning, but don't quote me. She stated how Chris would not pay for her other children, and she was responsible for paying everything for them. Now, what would make him do something different with Katie? So Katie paid, and I heard this, again, don't quote me, this is all alleged, but I heard that she had to pay for everything for Sebastian, and Seth helped. Like if she called, Seth mentioned he bought glasses, he bought boots for him, things like that. So Granny, my daughter, only child, has autism, and she's an eloper. We have multiple locks on our front and back fence, Deadpool, and chain locks on doors. She cannot sit in a booth at a restaurant without being blocked in. She runs like she has a mission. She just seems to be running toward the sunlight. It's not like, oh, she might run today and not tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry. That's horrible. You're, first of all, you're dealing with a special needs child, but then you're also worried day and night. Tell me, Sammy, do you have cameras inside your home? I'm curious. If Sebastian had autism, where was the extra security systems for the home? Well, especially since she worked for a security company, she probably got some kind of discount. Just deadbolts? Okay. It's the first missing child case I have followed. I am involved in local politics. I've found a lot of LE are ignorant to laws and a high amount of laziness. That said, there are a lot of good. I agree with you. So many on here know that my son-in-law was in law enforcement. He's retired now, but yeah, and he started out in Nashville, of all places. So I've often thought about, asking him questions about Nashville, but I don't know. It was so long ago that it's not really relevant for what's going on in today's world, right? So I don't think he'd have anything to really add to it. But he was a good law enforcement officer, and you're right. I mean, um, where he retired was in San Francisco, and during the police attacks and all that, when everybody was down on the police, he was spit in the face and you name it, and the poor guy, but he was never reprimanded or anything for doing anything back at people, he just did his job. He just did what he was supposed to do. And he's also a good Christian man. So yeah, there are good people out there. I back the blue 100%. Do I think that there are some law enforcement that are corrupted? Yes, but it doesn't mean the whole doggone department is, right? It just depends on who's in there and what their status is. If you've got a sheriff who is corrupt, there's not a whole lot that the deputy sheriffs can do about that, right? Sometimes it's your son did have cameras, but not now. Gotcha. She's only 3. Okay. And that's true. There is good and bad in every profession. So, yeah. Yeah. They both say their faith got them through it all. Yep. And I honestly believe that their faith, guys, they see some horrific things. And I think some don't handle it well and they turn violent, and others lean on their faith through it. That's what I think. Think about some of the things these police officers see, guys. Yeah. I can't even imagine. Honestly, I can't. It's horrible. It's horrible. Let's continue on. We've got a little bit of time left. Like I said, we're not going to get through this all
Tips
tonight.
came in with boys matching Sebastian's description reported in Gallatin, downtown Hendersonville, and along Long Hollow Road. And these are all 3 very different locations. Unfortunately, none of these leads turned out to be anything more than a sighting of a white teenage male who was vaguely similar in appearance to the missing child. One possibility that the police considered was that Sebastian was actually not in the area anymore at all, and that he had deliberately tried to go somewhere else. And one suggestion was the town of White House, Tennessee, which is about 7 miles north of where he lived if you were to go just as the crow flies. It's more like 10 miles if you take the roads. So definitely not, a casual little walk, but also not an impossible trek for a 15-year-old boy to make. Now, as for why he would want to go to White House, there was not a ton of information on that presented, at least not in the police recordings. I'm going to go and see if I can find more information about it, but a cursory search didn't turn up anything. All that we got from the police tapes was he had some ties at White House High School, and every time he got in trouble, he wanted to go back to White House. I notified White House PD, and they're notifying their SAR. Another officer suggested that they check Strike and Spare, which is a bowling and arcade facility in downtown Hendersonville, because allegedly...
So I didn't understand the White House correlation either, because we did find out that they lived on Remington Avenue in Gallatin before they moved to the house that they were living in. I was trying to think of the address, but so I don't know where did they live at White House before the Remington? I don't know, but remember that if you go back and you look, we did talk about the Remington house and how that was where Chris taught Sebastian to ride the bike. That was where he taught him how to use the excavator. So he seemed to be trying back then. But when they bought this house on Stafford Court in 2022, everything seemed to turn for the worse. And here's the thing. They only just got married in 2021, guys. So they've only been married 4 years.
Katie Proudfoot had taken Sebastian there last night, well, the previous night, I should say, to do just the whole bowling and arcade thing. Officers thought it was possible that Sebastian had enjoyed being there so much that he decided to walk back and try and get back in after bed. But even checking down there, there was no sign of Sebastian. So, with nothing found in the immediate vicinity, the case was escalated. News Nation reporting that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation issued an endangered child alert at 11:17 a.m. on February 26th. The day after Sebastian's disappearance was reported, the endangered child alert was upgraded to an Amber Alert, which carried one specific difference. There was concern that this was an abduction. But the question then is, why suspect this was a kidnapping? One very simple possibility is statistics. Sebastian's biological parents, Seth Rogers and Katie Proudfoot, were divorced. And according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, family members are responsible for about 58% of reported abductions. So as a result,
Family members are responsible for about 58% of reported abductions. Crazy. 58%, guys. I knew it was high. That is the highest. That's why it really surprised me when AMW went to stranger abduction right away. I was like, whoa. You know, they did not do their research, right? Like Aiden does. They did not do their research before they got on that show. Because if they did, they would have known that the windows were locked as well, right? They would have known that the flashlight video and the flashlights were not the floodlights that they were pointing at. I mean, they really did not do their research. They would have known that it was a retention pond that was drained, not a lake. I mean, there was just so many things wrong with that. Even though overall they got Sebastian's name and face out there, right? Thankfully, that was something that was needed. I just hope that the rest of the general population that didn't know anything about Sebastian did not hear what they said about they think Sebastian is close to the home. I just hope.
a non-custodial parent is going to be one of the first people that the police look at in child abduction cases. On the other hand, the NCMEC does consider autism to be a risk factor in child exploitation. And the concern here would be that someone either gained Sebastian's trust, lured him out, or just convinced him to leave the house and then took him. No matter what the official reason for the change to an Amber Alert was, they were definitely concerned about an abduction. So with the Amber Alert issued, police waited for tips to come in while professional and volunteer search groups combed the Hendersonville area looking for Sebastian. And as they did so, they were supported by a group called Sumner County Fire Bugs.
So, in my opinion, the old sheriff was probably instrumental in getting this to be an Amber Alert because he knew that Sebastian made it home, but he never left that house on his own. He made that, but then he died. Tragically, suspiciously, in my opinion, had a bad fall, hit his head and died. And suddenly, Eric Craddock was sheriff. Yeah, they didn't do any research. We knew more, didn't we? We knew more than they did. Yeah. It was almost like, to me, like they didn't really want to talk about the case. Had they been threatened before they did it? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's a possibility, right? They could have been. Joe Petito was one of the panelists, but he wasn't on for Sebastian's segment. Why? Because he had been threatened before. He was going to come on and talk to Seth. And he had threats to his life and his family's life. And he said, no, I'm not going to put my family, they had been through so much losing Gabby and all the pain and suffering they went through that process of trying to find her. with no help from Brian or the laundries, right? None whatsoever. I don't blame him for not being a part of anything to do with Sebastian's case. I don't blame him in the least little bit. Yeah. The information on their flyer says he weighs 110 pounds and was wearing a black t-shirt. Well, he was pretty skinny, and he was wearing a black t-shirt that night, wasn't he? I mean, yeah. The whole thing about his clothing has been suspicious right from the beginning. Let's continue this short little thing and then we'll stop.
Who provided food to those searching. Speaking to Nashville-based WKRN News, Firebuff spokeswoman, Nicole Federchek, said the sense in the community is everybody just wants to find Sebastian, this little boy that most of us have never even met before, and they just want to bring him home to his family. Meanwhile, Sumner County Deputy Chief Eric Craddock told people to closely monitor and check their surveillance systems. And he said, I think that's going to be what breaks the case. That is to say, with how many surveillance systems there are out there now, between home CCTV, Ring doorbells, dash cams, somebody must have seen Sebastian. But then, on Wednesday, the 28th of February, WKRN reported something a little weird when the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation put out the following statement. Understandably, there is interest in hearing from friends and family to help provide more of a personal context about Sebastian. However, we have been requested by the family, Katie and Chris Proudfoot, to let local media know that they are not in a position to speak or to be available to media at this time. We have told them that while we would relay their message, it would be the decision of the individual media outlets and reporters to proceed as they see fit. And it's important to note that to this point, 3 days into the search, the Proudfoots had not made any public appearances. No speaking to the media, no gatherings, no vigils, nothing. Everything had been relayed through the police. And while I understand wanting to avoid the media circus, it does strike me as a little odd that they would completely shut them out. You know, given the near total lack of information about Sebastian, I would expect that they would want to share anything that might help find him. And I'll also say that this was one of the first things that tipped me off that this was not going to be a straightforward investigation. And the same can be said about some things with his father, Seth. This is going to get really weird. So for now, I just want you guys to take in what I say. Don't make any assumptions. Don't jump to any conclusions. Obviously, do not harass anybody. Do not, go out there and start talking about how, oh, it was definitely the Proudfoots, or, oh, it was definitely Seth. The goal right now is to just get the information compiled, tell you what is factual information, and move on from there. All I'm saying right now is an acknowledgement that this struck me as a little weird. And the reason, and a big part of the reason it did, is because the police weren't really making much progress. If the police had been getting, lead after lead after lead, crawling and scraping their way towards finding Sebastian, I'd understand wanting to let them just continue doing what they're doing. But they were not having any success. And that's not a dig at the cops. The truth of the matter is, looking at the information they had available to them, I don't see a good way to track Sebastian down without considering foul play. As News Nation reported, the pond that Max the dog led his handler to, the one where there were no footprints leading away from it and Max couldn't pick up a scent trail leading away, they drained it. Nothing there. They also reviewed tons of security camera footage and there was nothing there. And as they deployed other dog teams to try and search the areas, once again, nothing could be picked up. The good news is that this did not seem to dampen the spirits of the community. If anything, it invigorated them further. And by March 2nd, WKRN was reporting that local business owners had pooled enough money to post a reward for any information leading to Sebastian's safe return. And by the time that article was published, that fund was up to $3,000. While the community rallied, however, News Nation reported on the 4th that police were planning to scale the effort down. Speaking to the media, Deputy Chief Eric Craddock explained that they were transitioning from the ground search to the investigative side. Now, I think it's important to talk about what scaling down the ground search means here, as well as what transitioning to the investigative side means. A lot of the time when I see people comment on missing persons cases, it's a lot of, well, why did the police stop looking? Why'd they scale it down? What were they thinking? They should have tried harder. Fact of the matter is, police departments, while they do have plenty of issues and we talk about them frequently, one of the ones they really can't control is funding and how many officers they can have and how well those officers can be trained. Most missing persons searches are not handled by the investigating department alone. They are a combination of the investigating department, outside agencies, volunteer groups, and then also some private search and rescue. All of that costs time and money that can only really be devoted for so long. The ground search had covered a ton of territory all over the Hendersonville area, and the fact of the matter was, they'd found absolutely nothing useful. In this situation, the first week of that ground search included over 200 officials from a dozen different agencies. And then on top of those guys, you also had volunteer efforts. So this was not a small search. This was not a short search. This was intensive. And by the 4th, they were just at the point where nothing new was coming up. This was after using drones, helicopters, horses, search dogs, and dive teams. So my point in saying this is they looked for Sebastian. Scaling down the search and switching to the investigative side simply meant there's nothing more we feel we can find from the ground effort, and the resources are better spent looking into other tips that are coming in and reviewing the evidence we have. Unfortunately, this is also typically the part of the investigation, at least in my experience reviewing so many of these, where police have a tendency to forget about it. And I do want to say that it's usually not an issue of malice or them saying, we don't care, it doesn't matter. It's that at first you've got an entire team dedicated to it, and then you have something else happen. And then you've got half a team, and then you've got a couple of partners. Then you got one guy, and eventually that guy leaves and nobody's paying attention to the case anymore. I cannot tell you how many of the cases we've looked at where that's what happened. Just it fell out of view. Even Tommy Booth, one that happened in our backyard a decade or 2 decades ago, we went and talked to the police about it. 20 years, guys. There was not a single person in that station who worked the case. And the reason I kind of harp on this in this case is that I don't want the Hendersonville Police Department to get flack for this stage of the search. If you've been watching the channel for a long time, I'm sure you know when the police need their heels put to the fire, we do it. I don't feel that we're looking at that kind of situation right now where the police department needs to be admonished. So anyway, I do also need to say that another important aspect of that announcement that the police were scaling down the search was that they also did instruct residents of the area to make sure that they were frequently checking their own properties twice a day, checking all of their surveillance footage, and even taking a look at their trail cams. While Sebastian and the Proudfoot family did live in a little suburban development community, a lot of the area around them is very rural, so you would expect there to be a lot of different hunters and people like that in the area who are going to be keeping an eye on the wildlife on their land, and if somebody was crossing it, they'd probably pass in front of a trail cam. There isn't a ton of reporting about what happened between the 4th and the 7th, but on the 7th, local reporter Nick Barris said that the Sumner County Sheriff's Office were searching a landfill in Kentucky where the Stafford Court neighborhood trash was taken. And this was not based off of any sort of specific tip. He just said that they referred to it as a precautionary measure to eliminate possible options and questions. And after a likely unpleasant search of the landfill, they determined that Sebastian was almost certainly not there. And then, as foreshadowed by the deputy chief's comments on the 3rd, Barris also reported that authorities appeared to be moving forward with a possible criminal investigation, though they had named no suspects. A few days later, on the 10th of March, the case gained a little bit of drama when Sebastian Rogers' father, Seth, went on Elizabeth Vargas Reports to express some of his confusion and frustration over how the case was going. He told Vargas it doesn't make a lot of sense. His shoes were at the front door, his Nintendo Switch was there, his phone was in the kitchen. I still can't figure it out. I've been looking everywhere, handing out flyers. In addition to that, he was also perplexed by the fact that Sebastian's shoes were still in the home, because as he could recall it, Sebastian did not like being barefoot at all. As you might be aware, many people on the autism spectrum struggle with certain sensory issues. A lot of the time, certain things can be overstimulating, overwhelming, and textures are often one of those triggers. You might not like the way something feels in your mouth or on your hands, or in this case, on your bare feet. What seemed to upset Seth the most, however, was an apparent lack of communication from the Proudfoots, who he said had not spoken to him in over 2 weeks and also had yet to make any public appearances. The Proudfoots made no response to this, but a TBI press release quoted by WKRN insisted that they had remained cooperative since the search began. The statement also said that there are little clues to indicate what happened to Sebastian or where he may be, and that while foul play hadn't been ruled out, it also had yet to be proven. One very helpful aspect of this specific WKRN article is a
Sorry, guys. Didn't realize I was muted. One of the things that really stuck out to me was that he said that they did the landfill search and Sebastian wasn't there. But in my opinion, they weren't looking. I think they were looking for cameras. It's my opinion. Because we did see that they said they were going to sift through everything that they found and see, what evidence it would be. And right after that, they said that it did turn into a criminal investigation. So I find that very interesting. The other thing that I also do agree with Aiden about is that them not wanting to speak in the beginning. And if you remember, Seth had talked about how they all talked in the beginning about different things like not getting a GoFundMe. I think they also talked about not speaking to the media. I think Chris and Katie talked him into this. Seth, I'm going to say this. I really feel like Seth wanted to be agreeable and do everything in his power so that they could all work together to find Sebastian. But he is the first one that ended up speaking out, right? Because he couldn't help himself. He's the father. And he was very concerned about the way the investigation was going. He didn't understand it. Sebastian's shoes were still in the home, right? He had his questions. The EMA guy saying they usually get some results from their search efforts. No results was disappointing to him. Yeah. It's because Sebastian didn't run away. He was taken. And yeah, standing in a strange kitchen looming over Sebastian's things. Yeah. No words for those two. Or possibly a Ring doorbell camera, allegedly. Exactly. And maybe what other garbage? Did the neighbor behind them throw some stuff away too? I mean, that's Sebastian's neighborhood. And we were told how the garbage truck went up and down and Kellen and round. All that trash from that neighborhood got taken to that Kentucky landfill. And they were there on the day that it was dumped there. It's no coincidence, guys. Law enforcement knows a lot more than what we know, in my opinion. They know a lot more. So, I mean, I just really think that all this stuff coming back now and kind of looking over it again, it's like, wow, yeah, they didn't talk to anybody in the beginning. And I really believe that, Seth was just trying to go along with them. And, I'm sure in Seth's mind, he was thinking, I want to be out there searching. I don't want to be talking to media, right? Seth doesn't like being in the public eye. He has said that many times, right? So I get that. I get that. But then he finally realized that he needed to do that, right? What kind of mother? And, and I'm just going to put this out there. What kind of mother doesn't get on national TV to talk about her child, her missing child? What kind of mother doesn't shut up about it? Yeah, they were looking at some loose papers while at the landfill. Did they find notes or financial statements? Did they find invoices from security company for cameras? I mean, what did they find, guys? They kept all that stuff that they saved. And in that video, it specifically said, we're going to sift through everything we got to see if it's of any evidentiary value. And sometimes when you collect evidence, you don't know if it's going to be evidentiary until later on in the investigation, when things start piecing themselves together, right? And so, my title was the stepfather involved. Well, at this point in the video, we don't really know yet, right? But there are some questions we have, correct? And even as of this day, May 1st, 2025, we don't know for sure, do we? But we do know that he has lied, that Katie has lied, that their stories have been changed, right? We do know that. So allegedly, if he was involved, he's going to have to answer for that someday. Because, guys, trust me, whoever's involved will be caught. I believe that with all my heart in this case. I believe that. Yeah. What kind of step-grandma doesn't say the child's name and calls a search a hunt? Yep. Yep, that's for sure. But be careful, Ginger. You're talking about Mama. Remember, we can't talk about the blip boards, Mama, the truck. Ah. Those are things that are triggers. I'm sure we'll have more triggers as time goes on. Yeah, I don't see Seth ever giving up either. Very good point, Canine. They all have a God to answer to. They do. They do. And when you look at how they have changed over the past year, I mean, even if you look at their pictures on AMC compared to their original picture, we can see how much they've changed, right? Stress is not good for anybody's body. So they have changed a lot. And it's really sad. And the thing is, Seth hasn't changed at all, in my opinion. Right? To me, he looks the same. As he always has. So, I don't know. All right. Let's get to we are going to take a couple nights to finish this up because I think it's interesting enough to continue on with. My grannyism for today is family is supposed to be there for you no matter what comes your way. Shame on the ones who are not. That's not what family is about. When I saw this picture of this little girl with her ears, it just reminded me of possibly what Sebastian went through. We don't know for sure, right? But I think that what he had to listen to toward himself and what he had to listen to between others, adults in his life, could not have been good. Shame on them, people. Because that is not what family's about. You know, family is supposed to be there for you no matter what comes your way. In my opinion, allegedly, Katie and Chris were not there for Sebastian through his struggles. Their answer was to get rid of him, in my opinion. And shame on them for that. Shame on them for that. So that's all I have for tonight, guys. I want to thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming in. Sorry if I'm not as giggly as I normally am. I just don't really feel the greatest, but hopefully tomorrow it's going to be better. Each day gets a little better, right? So thank you so much, and we're going to see you tomorrow night. Have a great night. Thank you for watching another episode of Granny's Crime Busters. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and even share the content. You can follow us on any of our other social media platforms at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We really appreciate you guys, and you can also email us at granniescrimebusters@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.